Yes, this guide is over an hour long. No, it does not have any filler. The Insect Glaive is one of the most intricate weapons in Monster Hunter World, and a lot of groundwork needs to be covered in order to fully grasp the mechanics behind this weapon. Many guides on YouTube and Reddit are incomplete or filled with misinformation, and so I made a complete guide to the Insect Glaive. Due to the length of this video, timestamps are in the description so that you don't have to watch it in one sitting. I recommend adding this video to your favorites or to your to watch later playlist so that you can easily come back to it when you have the time. All set? Let's begin. Soar through the skies as you attack from all angles. Deal devastating blows and avoid incoming threats as you leap from one place to another, all the while looking gracious. Hello hunters, my name is Dark Hero, and this is the ultimate guide to the Insect Glaive in Monster Hunter World. I've been using the Insect Glaive since 4 Ultimate, and I have already put well over 100 hours into this weapon alone in Monster Hunter World. There is a lot of misinformation regarding the Insect Glaive being spread around Reddit and YouTube, and as someone who has a lot of experience and has devoted themselves to use this weapon almost exclusively in World, I have decided to make this video to share the knowledge that I have acquired regarding this weapon with you all. The Insect Glaive is one of the most complex Blade Master weapons, as there is a lot of micromanagement you need to keep track of. But it's not as daunting as some people make it out to be. This will all feel very natural to you after you put some time practicing with this weapon. In addition, the Insect Glaive has gone through some changes in World, so even if you are a serious veteran like myself, you will be glad to know there is plenty to learn here. This guide will cover in great detail all the aspects of the Insect Glaive, the basics and fundamentals of the weapon, some advanced combos and how to use the Insect Glaive to optimize your damage per second, what to look for in armor skills, gems and decorations, how to customize your Kinsect to make it as effective as it can be, and some build suggestions that you may find very powerful for the Insect Glaive. With that being said, let's get started. The first thing to know about the Insect Glaive is the fact that it is a two-part weapon. It is composed of the glaive itself, which is the weapon that you use to deal damage, and the Kinsect, which is this little bug on my arm. The Kinsect can also deal damage, but you will be using it for the most part to buff your character. Now, I can't really talk about the glaive alone without mentioning the Kinsect and vice versa, so I will be explaining things in the order that makes the most sense. To start things off, let's take a look at the Insect Glaive's basic attacks. Press triangle to perform a rising slash, which deals 2 hits and is entirely vertical. Press triangle again to perform a ripping slash, which does 1 more hit. And if we press triangle one more time, we get the double slash. And you will notice that if I keep on pressing triangle after performing the double slash, nothing will happen. This is because this is where the triangle combo ends. If I want to keep the combo going, I need to press circle, but we'll get there in just a second. If you hold forward and press triangle, you will perform a thrust. As you can see, it has good reach and will replace the rising slash attack in a combo should you choose to use this one. And your draw attack is this leaping slash, which as the name indicates, leaps you forward and covers quite a bit of distance, so it can be a great starter to close the gap between you and a monster. You will also notice that this leaping slash is the same attack that you can perform by pressing circle while holding forward. As you can see here, you can aim this attack pretty high and also pretty low, depending on the distance between you and your target. And if you just press circle, you will perform the wide sweep. This is one of my least favorite attacks of the Insect Glaive, but it can be useful if you find yourself surrounded by smaller monsters. And if you do a follow-up to the wide sweep or to the leaping slash, by pressing circle again, you will perform an overhead smash. This is a combo finisher. It will end the combo no matter what attacks you performed previously, but you can perform a loop with it by pressing triangle afterwards and keep the combo going. We can do a leaping slash, follow that with a rising slash, followed by a reaping slash, and then a double slash, and then finish with an overhead smash, which we can then chain again by pressing triangle into a thrust, and we can continue the combo from there. We can keep it going just as long as we can, with room for some variations of moves. And an example of a true infinite combo would be triangle, triangle, circle, and then triangle, triangle, circle, and you keep repeating that same combo. As you can see here, we have created a loop. I will go more into detail on this topic in the advanced combos portion of this video, so stay tuned for that. You can also perform a backflip by holding back the analog stick and pressing circle in the middle of a combo. This backflip is one of my favorite Insect Glaive moves, as it deals some decent damage and allows you to dodge incoming attacks, some good examples being the Rathian and Rathalos backflip that inflicts poison and the Basil Goose's charge. You can also use this backflip as a way to reposition yourself, since many of the Insect Glaive's attacks leap you forward, but as we will see later on, simply rolling is often a better choice. Additionally, you can follow this backflip by performing a quick vault, which will enable you to place yourself in a lot of different scenarios, thus giving you a more comfortable position to fight. An important thing to note is that this backflip is not an evade. You don't get any invincibility frames by performing this backflip. You can still get hit while doing it, so it's important not to overuse this move. And please, try not to learn the lesson the hard way. And finally, let's talk about vaulting. You can leap yourself into the air by simultaneously pressing R2 and X. This is called a vault. Once you are in the air, you have 4 different options. You can not do anything and just fall to the ground. You can press triangle to perform a jumping slash, which is a vertical single hit attack that will get you back on the ground and deals some good damage. After vaulting into the air, you can press circle to perform a jumping advancing slash. This will boost you in whichever direction you aim your character at, and if it connects, you will be launched back into the air, allowing you to repeat this until either you run out of stamina, since this attack consumes a small portion of your stamina, or you do this 5 times, which is the limit. You can also press X while in the air to perform a mid-air dash that allows you to reposition yourself and can then be followed by a jumping slash or an advanced jumping slash. This mid-air dash can also be used to avoid incoming attacks. However, similarly to the backflip, this move does not give you invincibility frames, so it must be used under careful consideration. It should also be noted that while you are in the air, you are subject to falling victim to roars and air currents, which will stop you in your tracks and will cause you to fall down, leaving you in a vulnerable state, unless, of course, you have the skills to negate this. You will also notice that if you press triangle during a slide, you will do a jumping advancing slash. And if you jump off a ledge, with your weapon out, you are able to do anything you can do when you vault, so you can evade and press triangle, press circle and keep yourself in the air, it's the same deal. Another important note is that both the jumping slash and the jumping advancing slash, the mid-air triangle and circle attacks respectively, deal mounting damage, which can lead you to mounting the monster you hit. And I believe This is a great time to talk about how mounting works. Some of you may already know this, but I think it's an important mechanic that should be explained so that everyone is up to speed on this, and it will only take a few seconds. So, for those of you who don't know, mounting in Monster Hunter World works like an ailment. What I mean by this is that the monster you are fighting will become more resistant to status effects each time it is affected by one. You may have noticed that when your Palico is equipped with the flashy cage gadget, the more your Palico traps monsters with its shock trap, the faster it is for those monsters to free themselves from any shock traps. The same thing happens with mounting. At first, a monster will not be very resistant to mounting, so there is a very high chance that you will be able to mount it the very first time you try to do it. But with each subsequent mount, the monster will become more resistant, regardless of it being a successful mount or not. And you will have to deal plenty of mounting damage to be able to mount it again. This is why aerial combat isn't really recommended if you are looking to dish out some high DPS. One other thing to note though is that when you are mounting a monster with the Insect Glaive, if you try to move up or down while on the monster's back, you will perform a spin attack that deals some decent damage and lets you avoid the monster's attacks as it is trying to shake you off. Some pretty cool stuff. Now, having said all of this, there is something that I need to tell you. It's that you should never use your Insect Glaive like this. This is because the Insect Glaive's moveset can change quite a bit and become a lot more powerful with the help of the Kinsect, which we will talk about right now. There are 3 different ways to call out your Kinsect, but for now we will only cover 2 of those options and we will leave the third one for a later point in the video as well. The first of those options being when your weapon is sheathed, pressing R2 will call out your Kinsect in the direction you are facing. When your weapon is unsheathed, holding L2 will allow you to aim at where you wish to send your Kinsect out. Pressing triangle will order your Kinsect to come out in the direction of your reticle. Pressing triangle again will make your Kinsect go even further in that direction, and pressing circle will call back the Kinsect to you. Sheathing your weapon will also call back your Kinsect automatically. This small bar here indicates the Kinsect's stamina and will slowly deplete if your Kinsect is out. After it reaches 0, your Kinsect will immediately come back to you and you will not be able to call it out for a few seconds until it has some stamina again. Just a quick tip: to regain your Kinsect's stamina really fast, just call out your Kinsect and immediately call it back. This will restore about a fourth of a Kinsect's stamina, so you can get it up really fast. If your Kinsect hits a monster after being called out, it will collect an extract. There are 4 different types of extracts, which I will explain in just a moment, and they are red, white, orange, and green. You can identify which extract your Kinsect has collected by looking at the end portion of this bug that is drawn on your HUD. Calling back your Kinsect once it has collected an extract will heal you in case it's a green extract, or fill one of these 3 slots and apply a certain buff to your character depending on the color of the extract. The color of the extract is tied to a specific body part of a monster. This varies from monster to monster, but the general rule is red can be obtained from the head and sometimes from tails or front claws if the monster uses these to attack you. White can be obtained from wings or the feet of the monster. White usually comes from places that are related to the monster's mobility. Orange can be extracted from the monster's torso or from parts that are heavily guarded, and finally, green can be extracted from the monster's tail. Do note that some monsters simply do not have areas that can give you green extracts, so keep that in mind while you are fighting. As I said previously, the green extract heals you. The amount that is healed varies according to your Kinsect stats, something that we will touch on later in the video. The red buff is the most important one, and one you should have at all times. This is because red buff changes your moveset quite a bit by adding extra hits to most of your attacks. This is what I meant when I said that you should not use your Insect Glaive the way that I showed you. This is because, thanks to the red buff, your moveset will be much more powerful. As you can see here, with the red buff, a simple thrust now deals 2 hits as opposed to a single hit, which is what would have happened without the red buff. With the same number of button inputs, we have managed to double the number of hits, effectively doubling our damage with the thrust attack. And this is why the red buff is so important to the Insect Glaive. Other moves that are improved with the red buff are the Wide Sweep, which now deals 2 hits instead of just 1, the Overhead Smash, which now is called Tornado Slash, deals 2 hits instead of just 1, and its damage is considerably higher than it was, as you can see by these numbers. The Backflip now deals 2 hits instead of just 1 as well, and for the triangle attacks, Rising Slash combo now deals 3 hits instead of the previous 2 hits. If we press triangle one more time, we will see that the Ripping Slash now deals 2 hits, and if we press triangle again, we get the Double Slash that now deals 3 hits. Basically, you pretty much get to deal 1 extra hit per attack when you have the red buff active. As for the aerial moves, these change quite a bit too. As you can see, the Jumping Slash now deals 3 hits instead of just 1, and all of these deal mounting damage, thus making mounting monsters that much easier. As for the Jumping Advancing Slash, it now deals a whopping 6 hits instead of just 1, but unfortunately the first 5 hits deal a small amount of damage and only the last hit does mounting damage. For a while there was this false rumor that the aerial circle attack did not deal mounting damage, but that's not true, as you can see from this clip. If you want to mount the monster, you will need to connect with that final hit. Regardless, these are pretty good improvements from the original version and definitely look stylish. But for some reason, the Leaping Slash does not change, as it still does a single hit, which is unfortunate since the Leaping Slash is a very useful move, as we will see in the advanced combo section. It should be noted that the Rising Slash combo attack is capable of dealing 4 hits if it is used in the middle of a combo. So, if we perform our infinite combo, which once again is triangle, triangle, circle, triangle, triangle, circle, and so on, by the time the combo will start looping, you will see Rising Slash dealing 4 hits instead of 3, which is the norm when under the effects of the red buff. As you can see, the red buff is extremely powerful and you should never engage in combat unless you have it active. Keep in mind that with the reset patch, the red buff now lasts 90 benefits of combining the white and the orange buffs simply are overshadowed by the benefits that you get from the red and the white buffs. You should only have white and orange if you plan on going for a triple buff. Combining red, white and orange all together will activate what is called a triple buff. Once it is activated, this triple buff will override all other buffs, lasting 60 seconds. On top of all the benefits from the previous buffs, so an extended moveset, increased movement speed, super armor, 8% extra attack, 10% extra defense, and earplugs level 1, the triple buff will replace the 8% attack increase with a 12% attack increase. This triple buff is without a doubt very powerful, but keep in mind that after 60 seconds you will be left with no buffs, so you should have your Kinsect collect the red extract as soon as you see the buffs blinking, indicating only starts attacking after getting the white buff, which would shave a few seconds off the red buff timer, which is already pretty small at 60 seconds. It may just be a difference of a couple of seconds, but in Monster Hunter every second counts. One important thing to consider is that many speedrunners will only apply the red and white buffs and will never go for a triple buff. This is because they find that it's more beneficial to keep about the Kinsects. As I said, these small little buggers come in different shapes and types. They are as complex as any weapon in the game, and as a matter of fact, you can actually buy them and upgrade them into different versions, but it should be noted that, unlike with weapons, your Kinsect cannot go back to a previous state, it can only evolve, so keep this in mind. If you are like me, you will have a handful of Kinsects to deal with a variety of situations, which is something that I would recommend. You are given 2 Kinsects at the beginning, one of the Sever attack type and one of the Blunt attack type, and that's where we are going to start. These are the two types of Kinsects that exist, and this is essentially the same as cut damage and impact damage. I go in depth on this topic in my 10 essential tips video, but basically, blunt damage means you will deal stun damage and are able to knock out a monster if you hit it in the head with your Kinsect, and sever damage means that you will deal extra damage against monster parts that are susceptible to cut damage, and that your Kinsect is capable of cutting a monster's tail. Yeah, that's pretty freaking cool. Now, I personally choose my Kinsect based on its stats and its dust effects, which are things we will cover in just a few seconds, so I didn't really think too much about if it was of the sever variety or of the blunt variety. Some people say they prefer to use the blunt type because you will always be targeting the monster's head to get the red buff. I personally disagree with this statement because while it is true you will be targeting the monster's head often, you will only be doing that every minute or so since that is the red buff's timer. And that wouldn't be enough impact damage to stun or knock out a monster. I'd rather have my Kinsect attacking the tail since that is where I usually focus during the early stages of the fight. Cutting off a monster's tail may reduce or cripple its moveset, and that area is usually a lot less dangerous to fight than it is to fight the monster head on. You probably shouldn't focus too much on this, as there are other factors to take into account when choosing and nurturing your Kinsect, such as their dust effect. Speaking of dust effect, this would be a perfect opportunity to talk about the marking mechanic. While holding L2, you can press R2 to launch a projectile that will mark your target. If you are close to a target, you can also mark it by simply pressing R2. Marking a specific body part of a monster will make your Kinsect fly in the direction of that same part and attack it every 2 seconds. Each time your Kinsect attacks a marked part, it will leave behind these dust particles. These dust particles will vary depending on your Kinsect's dust effects. These dust effects can be healing, which is represented by the color green, paralysis, which is represented by the color yellow, poison, which is represented by the color purple, and blast, which is represented by the color orange. Attacking one of these clouds of dust will cause them to detonate, and its effects will, of course, depend on your Kinsect's dust effects. Healing will naturally heal you, and any party members that may be close to it. The amount of health that is recovered is based on your Kinsect's heal stats. At a low level, the amount that is healed will be about the same as an herb, whereas if your Kinsect has a high heal stat, you will recover about as much as a mega potion would. This is a great tool for beginners, as you will be learning how to properly use the Insect Glaive and won't have to worry too much about getting hit. As you get further into the game, you won't be needing the healing dust as much, as you will know the monster's patterns and how to avoid their attacks, plus you will have plenty of great items that you can use for much more effective healing. As for the paralysis and the poison dust effects, each explosion builds up paralysis or poison ailments on a monster until it is affected by that status ailment and becomes, in the case of paralysis, unable to move for a few seconds, and, in the case of poison, loses health over time. As for blast, similarly to the paralysis and the poison dust effects, each explosion builds up blast ailments on a monster. However, the big difference is the fact that each explosion deals 10 damage, and after being hit by it many times, a bigger explosion will occur, dealing 120 damage to the monster you are fighting. This dust effect is also particularly good for breaking monster parts due to the high frequency of explosions you will be causing. Now, as for what I would recommend, as I said, healing is good when you are starting out and are still getting used to the weapon. But, to be honest, you should really try not to get hit that much, as when you get to the endgame, you will not have the time to heal. Many attacks are able to take you down in a single hit unless you are extremely prepared. That being said, poison is a great alternative for the early and mid portions of the game, when your weapons aren't very powerful and the damage over time from the poison ailment can be very helpful in taking down strong monsters. Just keep in mind that you will only be able to poison the monster you are fighting about 2 times per quest, maybe 3 times if you are playing well with your dust clouds. As for the paralysis dust effect, it can be very powerful in multiplayer, as paralyzing a monster will give you a great opportunity to dish out a lot of combined damage. It also gives you and your party members time to heal, sharpen your weapons, and much more. But, much like with the poison dust effect, you will only be able to get it off 2, maybe 3 times per fight. As for single player, I would only recommend using paralysis against monsters that are especially weak to it, such as Diablos, that can be affected by the paralysis much more often. When it comes to the blast dust effect, this is my personal favorite, to the point where it almost doesn't feel right when I'm not using it. It's simple, it's extra damage. If a monster is resistant to it, it just means that the blast blight won't proc as often, but it will always deal 120 damage. Having said that, it still procs very often, a lot more than poison and paralysis do. In addition to that, the bigger explosions can knock out a monster, essentially giving you a window to dish out a lot of damage, similarly to paralysis, although the duration is somewhat shorter. And the most important factor as to why I use the blast dust effect is definitely the explosions. After all, who doesn't love explosions? Now, just a couple of things before we move on to the Kinsect stats. Your Kinsect can be used to trigger bombs, flash bugs, or paralyzing toads, or just about any toad. This can be pretty useful, so keep it in mind while you are hunting. You never know when you come across a flash bug, and you just call your Kinsect out and you will flash the monster you are fighting. And the second thing to know is that the mark target projectile can trigger the dust cloud's explosions. That way, you can detonate them remotely and it can be very effective in triggering any sort of blight on the monster you are fighting. Again, this is fairly situational, but it's good to keep in mind. You never know when you will be 30 feet away from a monster and you don't have the time to get close to it to detonate all the dust clouds around it. Finally, let's talk about stats. All Kinsects have 3 stats. Heal, which of course affects the amount of healing that you will receive from your Kinsect, both by collecting green extracts or by healing dust effects, if your Kinsect has it of course. As you can see here, a healing level 1 Kinsect heals about as much as an herb would, whereas a healing level 15 Kinsect heals as much as a mega potion would, but in an instant. Power affects the amount of damage your Kinsect does per hit. As you can see here, a power level 1 Kinsect, which is the starting level of power for any Kinsect, deals 3 damage against the pillar, and in contrast, a power level 15 Kinsect, which is the highest level of power in the game, deals 25 damage. That's quite a big difference, I would say. Kinsects can also have an element associated to them, which you can add in the blacksmith but costs some materials as any upgrade would. There are 5 elements and they are fire, water, ice, thunder and dragon. With this, your Kinsect will now be dealing elemental damage. However, adding an element to a Kinsect will reduce its power level by 1, so keep that in mind if you are going for raw damage. Adding an element to your Kinsect can be very beneficial if you are fighting against monsters that are weak to your Kinsect's element. This will, of course, increase your damage output quite a bit. However, on the flip side, if the monster you are fighting is resistant to your Kinsect's element, then you will be decreasing your damage output. For this reason, similarly to the dust effects, you should try to have different Kinsects with different elements, so that you are always prepared for any situation. And if you don't want to go through all of that trouble, just add ice or the thunder element to your Kinsect, as these two elements have the best coverage in the game. That being said, you shouldn't worry too much about your Kinsect's element, since most of your damage will be coming from your glaive and not your Kinsect. Although, killing a monster with your Kinsect can feel very satisfying. And finally, speed, which, of course, affects how fast your Kinsect travels. Speed is by far the most important stat of your Kinsect. If you have a slow Kinsect, you may send it in the right direction, but by the time it gets there, the monster will have moved to a different place, and now your Kinsect has missed or has collected a different extract than the one you wanted to collect in the first place. A slow Kinsect will make the task of collecting extracts, which is the Kinsect's primary function, a lot harder, which is why I think you should always try to have a fast Kinsect. For comparison's sake, let's take a look at a speed level 1 Kinsect, which is the default level of speed that any Kinsect comes with, versus a speed level 15 Kinsect, which is the highest level of speed any Kinsect can have. As you can see, the slow Kinsect takes 4 seconds to reach the pillar, whereas the max speed Kinsect only took 1 second to get there. The difference is quite jarring, and I really want to emphasize just how important a Kinsect's speed really is. There are some Kinsects that have very high power stat or a healing stat, but sacrifice speed, and I would advise you to stay away from those. I recommend having a Kinsect with a speed level of at least 12, so that you can get those extracts in a quick and easy manner. As for my personal favorites, one fantastic all-around Kinsect would be the Grand Cathar, which is the best Kinsect for healing, in my opinion, as it has a pretty high healing level of 11 and has the healing dust effect, coupled with a speed level of 15, which is the highest level of speed. As I said earlier, I don't really recommend prioritizing healing, but if that's your choice, then this is the Kinsect for you. If you are going for paralysis, then the Kincadaman is a great Kinsect to rely on. Although it doesn't pack a punch, 12 speed is a very good level of speed and you can count on its high healing capabilities. It really doesn't get much better for paralysis, as the other ones are quite slow and thus a lot harder to use. If you want to knock monsters down to the floor and poison them, then there's nothing better than the Carnage Beetle. It has high power and deals blunt damage, so you want to aim at the monster's head to knock them down very easily. The poison will eat away at the monster's health while you destroy its hopes and dreams. The Carnage Beetle also has decent speed, and just look at this thing, it looks awesome. And at last, but certainly not least, we have my personal favorite, the Pseudocath. Blast is my favorite dust effect, and this Kinsect has it, on top of having a high power level of 12 and max speed. Its healing capabilities are pretty limited, but I never rely on my Kinsect for healing, so that's not much of a problem for me. Being a Sever type Kinsect with high power, you will see the Pseudocath cuts off tails a lot more times than you would expect. And it never stops being fun. If you want to use the blast dust effect, this is the way to go, and I would even say that this is overall the best Kinsect in the game, and I highly recommend it. All Insect Glaives have a Kinsect bonus, which improves a specific aspect for your Kinsect. These boosts can be Sever, Blunt, Speed, Element, Health, and Stamina. The Sever and Blunt boosts improve, of course, the cut and impact damage, respectively, that is dealt by the Kinsect. The Element boost improves the effectiveness of the Kinsect's element. The Speed boost improves, of course, the speed stat of your Kinsect. Even if your Kinsect has a speed level of 15, which is the highest, it is still going to be improved by the speed boost. As you can see here, when equipped with a non-speed boost glaive, my speed level Kinsect takes 34 frames to get to the pillar, whereas when I had a speed boost glaive equipped, that very same Kinsect got to the pillar in just 23 frames. Keep in mind that Monster Hunter World runs at 30 frames per second, at least on the PS4. The health boost increases the amount of healing you get from your Kinsect. As for the stamina boost, it not only decreases the rate at which your stamina decreases when your Kinsect is out, it also increases the amount of stamina that is recovered when you call back your Kinsect. From my tests, calling back your Kinsect will recover about a third of your stamina, whereas calling it back while having a stamina boost glaive equipped will recover about 3/5 of your Kinsect's stamina. As for the stamina depletion rate, without the stamina boost, your Kinsect will be out for about 20 seconds until it immediately comes back to you, whereas with a stamina boost glaive equipped, the Kinsect will last for about 25 seconds. I never really take these boosts into account when I'm choosing which glaive to use, but there are some boosts that are definitely better than others, such as the speed boost, which can make a slow Kinsect much faster. So go ahead and choose whichever one you like the most. Now that we have covered the mechanics behind the Insect Glaive, let's talk about advanced combos, how to achieve the highest DPS possible. In previous games, the infinite combo, triangle triangle circle, triangle triangle circle, and so on, was the way to go. But now, in Monster Hunter World, this combo doesn't deal as much damage, so your highest damage dealing combo in the shortest amount of time is simply triangle circle. Some people prefer to use circle circle, but the wide sweep, the first circle attack, deals less damage as it hits twice for a total of 97 damage, whereas the rising slash combo, the first triangle attack, hits 3 times for a total of 116 damage in the same amount of time. It may not seem like much of a difference, but the gap gets bigger with affinity and critical hits, as well as with gems that boost your attack, for example. Additionally, the rising slash combo does not leap you forward as the wide sweep does, which means that you won't have to adjust for it, even though you will have to do that because of tornado slash, which leaps you forward quite a bit. Speaking of which, tornado slash is the sole reason as to why the triangle circle combo is so great, as it deals a lot of damage. As you can see here, it's dealing around 155 damage, and this can get much stronger once you start adding armor skills. However, one thing to keep in mind is that this attack leaps you forward and a bit to the side, which means that you will need to readjust your position before you start attacking again, so that you can hit the monster's weak spots. That being said, Tornado Slash is a combo finisher. It has a long wind-up animation, and you need to wait about a second or so until it finishes to start the combo again. Pressing triangle right after will perform a thrust instead of a rising slash combo, which means that to get to Tornado Slash we need to press triangle or circle first for a Reaping Slash or a Wide Sweep respectively, and if you choose to use Reaping Slash, you will still need to do a double slash or a Wide Sweep to finally get to the Tornado Slash. So, if you want to get to Tornado Slash as fast as possible, just press circle circle after performing a thrust. You can also perform a backflip after the thrust, which allows you to reposition yourself, preparing for a Tornado Slash, which you can do by pressing circle afterwards. However, the backflip does not move you diagonally, and, as we have seen earlier, the Tornado Slash moves you forward and a bit to the side, which means that even if you perform a backflip, there's a big chance you still won't be in that perfect spot where you performed your first Tornado Slash and ensured you hit the monster's weak spot. For this reason, rolling can sometimes be more beneficial than pressing triangle for a thrust and back circle for a backflip. Although you are not dealing any damage by rolling, you can move to a position that will ensure you will be dealing critical hits by hitting the monster's weak spots. In addition, rolling after Tornado Slash is faster than to do the thrust and the backflip, which gives you room to add filler attacks that lead to the big Tornado Slash finisher before the monster moves or you lose your opening. Also, after rolling, you can press circle while holding the analog stick forward to perform a leaping slash, which can be a good way to readjust your position, and then press circle again for a fast Tornado Slash. This is one of my favorite ways to access the Tornado Slash as fast as possible in the middle of a combo. The Tornado Slash is without a doubt the strongest move in the Insect Glaive's arsenal, but keep in mind that it is a risky move, and as such, is best used when you find openings. One other thing that is worth stating is that you can use the fact that the Tornado Slash moves you forward to your own benefit. Say you are attacking a Kushala Daora's head, and it starts charging its Wind Roar. Use Tornado Slash to deal massive damage and get under the monster, avoiding the incoming attack. Find these opportunities and you will have a great time using Tornado Slash. But what if you don't find these openings? In that case, the infinite combo is a great option. Since you don't really move your character while you attack with it, you can focus on specific parts of a monster, specifically the head and the tail. Seeing as the triangle attacks aim pretty high, you can very accurately deal a lot of damage to a monster's tail and eventually cut it off. This infinite combo is especially good for applying status ailments due to the high number of hits involved in each attack, and can be used in a variety of situations, so make good use of it. With all of this being said, what about aerial combat? Well, as I've said earlier, aerial combat isn't really optimal if you are going for high DPS. It's hard to connect with all of the hits of the triangle attack, and the circle attack deals very little damage except for the last hit. You can use it to detonate some dust clouds all at once, but that's pretty much it. Additionally, mounting a monster means your damage per second will plummet until you go back to attacking the monster. Sure, you can deal good damage when the mount is successful and the monster will stay on the ground for a few seconds, allowing you to dish out a lot of damage for free, but the fact is you could be dealing a lot more damage by just attacking the monster on the ground. Unless, of course, I'm playing multiplayer, where mounting a monster can be very helpful for your party, as it lets your teammates deal damage for free on the monsters or get ready for another round of damage. Having said this, it's all about having fun. Play in whichever way you like the most. I personally only use these options as a means of mobility, either to get close to the monster or to dodge some attacks, all the while dealing damage, and I also use the aerial combat as a means to detonate a few dust clouds that may be around the monster, but if you find it fun to fight in the air, then go for it. I believe that this is the power fantasy that the Insect Glaive provides. It's the main appeal of the Insect Glaive, and I would be lying if I said that it wasn't the reason I started using this weapon. As I said, use whatever you feel like using. Monster Hunter is all about fun and freedom. See what I did there? And freedom of choice. The best way to play is the most fun way to play. And now, it's time to look at some builds that work well with the Insect Glaive, as well as some armor skills that can turn the Insect Glaive into an even stronger weapon. First, we have the ever so popular Dragon King Eye Patch Autogaron build, which of course consists of the Dragon King Eye Patch headpiece as well as the rest of the Autogaron set. With this, we get access to the Autogaron set skill, Protective Polish, which makes it so that your weapon's sharpness does not decrease for an entire minute after you use a whetstone. This works incredibly well with another skill provided by this set, Speed Sharpening, which reduces the amount of cycles needed to sharpen your weapon, and at level 3, you only need one cycle to sharpen your weapon, which means that you can use it in the middle of combat, as it now takes less time to sharpen your weapon than to drink a mega potion. How crazy is that? Now, why would you want any of these skills? Well, as you have seen throughout the video, the Insect Glaive is a very fast multi-hit weapon. As such, you will find that your weapon's sharpness will decrease very fast and will have to constantly be sharpening your weapon to prevent any damage loss, and these skills help us do just that. And in case you did not know, maintaining a high level of sharpness is important because it can increase your weapon's damage. As you can see from this chart, a weapon with a wide sharpness gauge will have its raw damage increased up to 32% when it's white, and its elemental damage also increases up to 12.5%. For this reason, I recommend using the Vice Insect Glaive from the Autogaron line. It has wide sharpness and a base attack of 496, which may not seem like much, but thanks to the wide sharpness, its attack gets boosted to even greater heights. Now, this video is already reaching the 1 hour mark as it is, so I won't go over the numbers in this video explaining the damage formula, as it would take at least 10 minutes to do so, but for the sake of clarity, I will leave the damage values in the description as well as in the comment section for everyone to see. Thanks to our build, we will be able to maintain that extra 32% attack increase at pretty much all times. But wait, there is more. The Vice also comes with a 20% affinity increase, which goes great with our armor skills. Thanks to the Autogaron parts, we get Critical Eye level 4, which increases our affinity by 15%. And thanks to the Dragon King Eye Patch, we get Weakness Exploit, which increases affinity by 30% on attacks that hit a monster's weak spot. So, with all of that considered, we get 65% affinity right off the bat, without even using a single jewel whenever we are hitting a monster's weak spots, which you should be at all times. Speaking of jewels, getting a Weakness Exploit one would allow you to get 85% affinity, which is incredibly helpful as affinity is the weapon's chance of performing critical hits that deal 25% more damage, so you should try to keep it as high as possible. Another thing to note is that the Vice has fire elemental damage. However, as you can see here, it is grayed out. This means that we need the free element armor skill in order to have these elements, and In this case, we don't have. But we can use this to our advantage. We can add an elementalist gem, which will boost our raw attack by 10%. What makes this even better is the fact that this 10% comes before applying the white sharpness 32% increase, so the overall attack increase is going to be much bigger. Again, I don't want to spend too much time explaining these numbers, but for those who are interested, check the description or the comment section. Another boon of the device is the fact that its Kinsect bonus is speed, which is the best bonus to have in my opinion. And that is pretty much it for this guide. If you are still watching, you are a true legend, and I am so glad that you are still here. As you can imagine, I have put a lot of work into this video. Just the script alone was 16 pages long and I did 2 drafts before finishing it. And then, of course, there's all the time I spent researching and testing out different things so that the information I relayed was accurate. I kind of wish more people did that before making videos so that they wouldn't spread misinformation, but at the same time I kind of understand now why they don't. This video was actually meant to be uploaded several weeks ago, but unfortunately, due to some files being corrupted and getting deleted, I simply could not do it, and as I said earlier, I have a lot of university work to do, so my schedule is pretty busy. I'm not saying this just to complain, in fact I had a lot of fun making this video. I am a very passionate Monster Hunter fan. I've actually been playing this franchise since 2006 and I am absolutely in love with World, which is why I spent all this time and effort making this video, and it would really mean the world to me if you could help me by liking this video and maybe sharing this video around, even if it's just with a single friend. I've been kicked out of my network, so your support would really help me out a lot. And maybe consider subscribing to my channel if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more guides like this in the future. I've got plenty of Monster Hunter videos lined up, planned to come out very soon, and if you want to, I can make more videos like this in the future, so let me know what you would like to see down in the comment section below. Maybe you'd like me to cover a specific weapon, like the bow or the switch axe. Or maybe you would like me to show you some of my endgame builds that I have been working on. Anyways, I have rambled enough. I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Bindark Hero, and happy hunting.